Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Basem Hanna Podcast. Today we are fortunate to have our second guest. Anthony Ricciardi is joining me today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So format is going to switch a little bit from the first time that I had a guest on the podcast. Instead of doing a lightning round with shots, we're going to just jump right into it. You'll notice that this time we got shishas going. Sponsored or given to us lovingly by Carnet Cafe, my boy Anthony. So thank you very much, different Anthony. So with that, I think we just want to jump right in. Anthony, thank you so much for being here. To be honest, this is our second time recording this podcast. Last time we did this, the audio and video got a little messed up. So I really do appreciate you coming back to record this for a second time.
Happy to be here.
So maybe just before we get started, or how we should get started, is by you giving just a quick intro on yourself, and then we'll jump right in.
For sure. So I'm a Toronto-based artist. I do artwork and murals around the world, but based here in Toronto. Growing up, I always wanted to be an artist, but it didn't seem like a viable career. Like no one growing up says, hey, become an artist. That sounds like an actual career.
Yeah.
So I actually went to school in Alabama on a baseball scholarship for university, and I studied finance. Finance seemed like a viable thing. Let's go make some money. Let's learn. And art sort of was on the back burner.
Right.
And I ended up working for a real estate investment fund, and I got a lot of great insight, and it was also very entrepreneurial, and I got a lot of great learnings from that. But every night and weekend I was painting. And I started to look at my days and started analyzing how much time I was wasting in a day. And I started figuring, like after work,
right.
I started figuring out, like, I got 3-4 hours where I could paint. Mm-hmm. And I spent 5.5 years working in finance. And during that time, every night and weekend, and I mean I was painting. And that was the formative building blocks to like eventually making that transition. After about 5.5 years, I said, if I'm ever gonna do something crazy, like quit my job and become an artist, I might as well do it while we're young.
Right.
And I now it's just over 6 years ago, I left my corporate finance career and pursued art. And since then, I've been able to do galleries and shows and murals around the world.
You're a big deal. Like for the guests that don't know, like you have a very good following on social, and more importantly, your pieces are commissioned in some very cool places. Maybe not to put you on the spot, but give me like a show off reel of like where your pieces have been that you're like, hey, flex a little bit for us. Yeah.
No, it's been a wild ride. I've had my galleries in 2 of the top malls here in Toronto, which are Yorkdale Mall and Yorkville Village. I've done artwork for celebrities around the world, everyone from Justin Bieber to Shaquille O'Neal to Demi Lovato, and sort of the list goes on. Dude. And then a bunch of other big developers. I do work with Green Park Homes, Lifetime Developments, Camross Felcorp. And then also murals around the world. I've done big, large-scale murals in Antigua, in Puerto Rico, in Barcelona, London, England, Manchester. Right. I'm headed to, on this upcoming Monday, on the 13th of March, I'm headed to Australia for my first show in Australia. So I've done shows around the world and shows in Miami, LA, all throughout Europe, and now Australia will be the first one. So that would be really fun. But yeah,
I can tell you with confidence and from my own experience, financial analysis does not allow you to meet Justin Bieber or Shaq or do shows in cool areas. So that's very wicked. So I want to kind of go back, and we'll start from the beginning with you. Let's talk about baseball. Right, let's start at the very beginning. So you went to school in the States on a baseball scholarship. For the people that watch this that are still in school, how do you get a baseball scholarship as a Canadian? Or how do you get any sports scholarship as a Canadian? Because I know there's not scouts that watch the Canadian athletes as much as
for sure.
So just walk me through that process. We'll get to the entrepreneurship stuff, but I'm very fascinated by that.
I think the process in which I took to get to university was very formative in my entrepreneurial career and my art career, or at my business career as a whole. So knowing that 2 big lessons that baseball and academics taught me was knowing that I wasn't going to get the same looks like you mentioned, being here in Toronto. And I was a good baseball player. I wasn't the best baseball player. I wasn't like scouts were just flying up to see me. So I had to take a very, very creative approach to finding a university. And what I did was I knew I didn't want to go to school in Canada. I knew I wanted to play baseball. And I was like, I emailed all I want to play Division I, which is the highest level underneath the major leagues or
Right.
underneath professional. So Division I university, I said there's 306 of them. Let me take a very, very creative and entrepreneurial approach and email every single one of them. And I didn't just email like, hey, my name's Anthony, I want to come to your school. I researched every single school. And this was like in grade 11, 12. This is years ago. And I said, why do I want to go to these schools? And that's the only way I had a chance of one of these coaches, one of these recruiters to actually take notice.
Like you wrote them like personal
Emails.
notes?
It was all it was all emails, but they were all personalized. Like all of them.
So you're basically writing resumes.
I was pretty much writing very intense cover letters before I had to ever do that
Dear
for
sir,
universities.
madam.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but because all of the information, I mean, this is a lesson for everyone. All the information of people you're really trying to get to is available. Right, you just have to search for it, and you got to look for it. So when the head coaches weren't responding, I went to the assistant coaches. When the assistant coaches weren't responding, I went to the athletic directors. After that 306, to be totally honest, was a very good lesson in rejection because 304 just never responded. Right. Like, so I got 2 responses.
Sorry, you applied to 306
Division I schools. Email every single one.
There's
that many. Yeah. There is. I learned that through the process. All throughout the U.S., big to small. And then what ended up happening was I started realizing, the top 25 teams I'm probably not good for right now. Right. So then I started looking at that mid-ranking teams, and I was like, why do I actually want to go there? So then I started crossing off things off the list. Like, I want to go to warm weather. I want to go to Alabama or Florida or California, whatever it is. And then started really honing in on those specific ones. And that was a big lesson for me moving forward, is like, what do I want to do? And then work backwards to actually how to get it. And that's what I think is a big, a lesson for a lot of entrepreneurs, like actually have a target. So I knew I wanted warm weather. I wanted to play Division I. That all of a sudden narrowed down to 47. And then I was like, how can I properly attack these 47 and say, like, that's what I want to do? And that's what I did. And what ended up happening was through all these emails, through all this process, it was thousands of emails eventually sent and phone calls, of course. I ended up getting a few offers. One school in California, one school in Atlanta, and then Alabama. And I ended up saying Alabama was in a transition period with their coaching staff and in the program as a whole, and it was going to give me an opportunity to play. And I ended up going down there on a baseball scholarship. I was, my first year, I was pitcher of the year. I had a bunch of different awards. So it set me up because I was a freshman in my first year. I was at a team that was rebuilding. I was able to put in stone, I'm here now, we're good. And then I was able to, play this next 4 years.
You have the ownership or a spot in the roster.
Exactly.
Not that I think Alabama's programs are solid, but it's like smaller fish, bigger fish in a smaller pond.
That was exactly it. And you just also finding your fit in the market, finding your fit is to you as a human, where will I excel the most and where will I learn?
Right.
So that was a really big thing. And the second thing that baseball really taught me was being a leader and working with a team. I mean, both of those lessons, anyone that's played team sports can definitely attest to this, but being a team player, understanding you have to work with people was lessons that I ended up taking on for the rest of my life. And it was so, so important.
So you said something there that I think it bears repeating, which is visualizing the finish line, knowing what it is that you actually want to go after so that when you're in the pursuit of it, you don't get lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's baseball or entrepreneurship or art or a finance career or anything, that is the first real step, right?
For sure.
You got to know what you're trying to go for.
Yep.
Okay, so you get to Alabama. How long did you play Division
I was there for 4 years.
Oh, you did your whole
I did my whole did my whole degree there, and then on the back end of the 4 years, I thought I wanted to be a coach. I loved coaching. I loved the concept of teaching, and I had my finance degree. I ended up staying back for an extra semester to coach, to be in an assistant, a junior assistant. And then I realized ultimately I was like, I have this degree now. Do I actually want to live in Montgomery, Alabama, full time? I have my wife, my girlfriend at the time. We've been together since high school, and we've stuck together ever since. And I was like, no, I actually want to come home and start and really, really utilize all the skills and everything that I've learned in school for something better. So I don't want to say better. Sorry,
the
just
dream,
something different.
I feel like university is like extended summer camp for almost adults.
For sure. It really is. And I had a bunch of different opportunities to continue to play baseball after. I had an opportunity in Italy. I had a couple different opportunities overseas to play. I didn't get drafted to major leagues. I dealt with a few injuries through college, and that was what it was. But I did have a couple opportunities. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to keep. I felt like after that one semester, I felt like I was going to just keep prolonging the reality of having to eventually go home and having to actually start my career.
So you accepted the fact that you might not be like the next.
Yeah, it wasn't baseball, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it was a good lesson because I went to that extra semester to learn how to coach. I was able to come home, and this is where my entrepreneurial journey started before getting into finance.
Right.
I came home and realized that I was a pitcher. And specifically, there was no coaches in Toronto, specifically, really when I looked at Canada, teaching just pitching. And when my friends from Texas, my friends from Florida, my friends from California, they all had pitching coaches growing up. I'm like, this is a concept that's was never done in Toronto. I don't know why. So I said, well, why don't I open up the first pitching school here? And that's actually how I got my job in finance, because I had for a couple years right before I started, I had like one of the biggest pitching schools. I think like maybe 500 to 600 different kids coming in and out of the program, just teaching them how to pitch. I would work with in full organizations, like the full, all the teams in an organization to teach them how to pitch. And I would go in as a guest instructor and teach them mechanics and everything. And and what I did there was then I took the same approach to get to university, where I emailed all these different things. Well, all of those teams have parents, right? Yeah. All the kids have parents, and all of them had, and I can very easily, I was proud enough that I had a finance degree. I was a good person in society and helping their kids. I was like, hey, by the way, I have a finance degree and I'm looking for a job. And I was very that specific. And because I had all their emails, this is a little bit back end, but I had all their emails. I'm like, I can look at what these people do.
Fortune favors the bold, my friend.
Right? And I just started emailing, and I was like, hey, I know you're at this investment bank. I know you're over here at this. I know you're an accountant. I know this. I'm like, I want to work for you. And and one dad, actually a few ended up coming through. One mom and a dad ended up. One was at Kraft and one was at this investment fund that I ended up working at. We're like, well, yeah, we like you. They didn't really even ask much. They just trusted me as human. And like, hey,
they knew you already.
Yeah, they knew me just as a guy. Never mind the business setting. And they're like, well, yeah, let's take a chance. And that's how I got my first job. And that was at Romsman Investment Corporation, which is an incredible
Dude, that's amazing.
Real estate investment fund. And yeah, that's how I started in finance.
Okay, so baseball is now kind of in your rearview mirror. You're doing the coaching, and then bam, Romspen comes, knocks on the door, or you knock on their door, and you say, okay, I need a job as an analyst, which is kind of for those that don't know, analyst is like the entry level position to get into the finance world. So talk to me about that position a little bit. Like what were you doing? What did you like? What did you not like? All that good stuff.
For sure. So I was on the origination team doing debt, and I was looking at like very, very large construction projects for condos specifically. It was my first thing. Romspen as a whole does so many different things. We did land loans, we did a bunch of things, but we were lending money ultimately. There's an equity team. I was on the debt team, and what I was doing was very, very quickly, because it was a small team, I was working directly with the partners. And although they have, a few billion under management, it was still a very tight-knit team. And that's what I loved so much, because the partners, the 4 or 5 partners that were part of Romspen were extremely entrepreneurial and so inspirational to me, because I was looking at them like, these guys are all just like thoroughbred entrepreneurs that are just found a way to lend money, to understand deals. When people like you come to the table with these lenders, they're like, hey, I got this project, got this dream, I want to build this condo. I was able to sit with you and be like, wait, why is this going to work? Yeah. How is it going to work? And understand. And that concept to me was so beautiful. And I was able to like really, really get an inside look at the entrepreneur needing the money. And everyone, and I also very quickly learned that it's not necessarily a need. It's a lot of these entrepreneurs had so many projects on the go, the bank wouldn't just give traditional financing. So I got to learn so many different layers to funding, to investments as a whole, and that's why I got a crash course immediately.
I mean, also, like for those that don't know, real estate is never all equity, right? Yep. Like you're always borrowing money from the bank, whether it's construction financing or mezz financing or whatever it is. There's always a lender that's associated with it. I can't think of a project that gets built all equity.
No, it doesn't even make sense to do it all equity. The returns it won't make sense, and to use all your own money in it doesn't. No,
it's a waste.
It's a waste.
Okay, so you get in there, you see these entrepreneurs. One thing I also just want to highlight is the fact that you were mentioning looking at the deals is one thing, but getting exposure to the types of people that are asking for this cash, and that are pushing forward. What does something like that teach you? Because how old were you when you got that job?
Yeah, I was 21. Yeah, I was 20, 21, 22. It was like, and I was meeting with seasoned entrepreneurs like yourself, or then different people that were coming in with really incredible real estate deals. at a very young age, and I'm literally learning. I'm sitting at the boardroom table with them. Obviously, I'm still a junior, right? As we mentioned, I'm still an analyst. I'm in the room, and that was the key to me.
Yeah.
It was just being in the atmosphere, being in the conversations, and then taking that information and making financial models and understanding it on the back end, like how to make this actually work. I mean, it was invaluable, and it was. But yeah, the lessons that I learned from those individuals were, I mean, incredible.
Okay, so you're in the room, you're learning the lessons. How long did you work in finance for?
So there's a good lesson that I learned too was I total about 5 years, and just over 5.5, sorry. And I was working at Romspen for 4.5 years, right. And I thought I was starting to do my art thing. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I was painting every night and weekend, even when I worked.
I want to ask, why were you painting? Like,
great question. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what's like up until this point in your life, you really haven't talked about art being a focus.
Yeah.
You know, like you went from baseball, which I'm sure was a very full-time thing when you were doing it, and then you come back, you start coaching school, then you go into entrepreneurship. Where does art fit in? Like, why?
Yep.
I want to know the why.
Yeah, no. So I'm heavily inspired by one of my uncles. My uncle was an artist, and my whole entire life we went to art shows together, went to the AGO, went to all the different things together. And but transparently, it was never his career. He never did well as an artist. And I mean, that's just a very common story throughout history. There's the common theme of a starving artist and so on and so forth.
For sure.
So growing up, although I loved it, I loved the concept of painting, It was just never realistic. Yeah. So I never put it, and I'm a realistic guy. Like I want to do well. I want to make things work. So the reason that it was always sort of in the back, especially you were 100% right. When I was in baseball, it was a full-time thing. And being away at college, like I couldn't. And it's really funny, like looking back now, I actually was, even though I had a finance degree, I was the only outside art student that had artwork in the Alabama Museum, like at our school. So I was doing it, but like my friends would make fun of me, and like my coach would be like, "What are you saying? What are you doing?" It was a funny thing. Like we're like, we're a bunch of college baseball guys. Like, who's this guy painting for? That's super weird.
Yeah.
It was like, it's just like, so I did it like very low key.
Jokes on them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Now they're all at all my shows, and I love them.
Yeah.
But they definitely made fun of me, and especially at a younger age, I was like, well, I don't want to do this. This is weird.
Right.
But what ended up happening was when I was away at university, my uncle unfortunately passed away. When I came home, I know he was a big inspiration to me, but when I came home, all of his artwork, his old poetry and everything, I got. And I got to see it all and like learn from it. And I guess immediately it may have been, looking back, maybe it was a coping thing. Maybe it was just like I was just trying to do something to, just to get through being in finance. And it was a hard job and I was working long hours. So maybe it was just an outlet for me. Like initially, I never thought anything of it truly because I still had this thing ingrained in my brain that was like, you can't make this a career.
Right.
But what ended up happening over those 4.5 years, because I was doing it so much, and I was living at home at the time. I wasn't on my own, so I had the bedroom at the house. My parents had a greenhouse in the backyard. I got to throw some paint in. Although I was doing it at nights and weekends, I started to take the creative approach about reaching out to architects, interior designers, and that's when one of my first projects was a good friend of ours, Patrick Marzouk, and it was figures. Yeah. So the designer there, the interior architect, was Anthony Ricciardi at Prototype Design Labs, and we all connected to do the interior of that. And I actually did that mural at nights. Like my office was in Yorkville, so I would walk over and finish that mural while I was still working. I would come in my like suit to start painting. It was really funny.
On.
Yeah, exactly. It was really funny. It was a funny transition, but that was the transition point. What ended up happening was I thought all of a sudden I got recruited to a different company, a company called Timber Creek Asset Management.
Also a great company.
Yeah, awesome. They're all fantastic. But it was at this very key pivotal transition point for me where I thought I wanted to become an artist. I was already talking to my boss at Romspen about like transitioning out to become an artist. And it wasn't sustainable yet. I was still in the process. I was about to get married. I was closing on my first house, and like to leave a steady income was a little bit crazy.
Right.
And I thought that the answer was just more. I needed more money.
Right.
And that was the first blinder in my life where I was like, money will make me happy. We can what it is. That sounds good.
Yeah. And
I ended up leaving Romspen, which was a very comfortable situation, to go to Timber Creek, and I was making a lot more money.
Okay, before you go, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I am. How much money were you making in finance? Like, I want people to understand
It was like 23, 24 was making just over 100,000.
Back in, that's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, or 7, 8 years ago, right?
Yeah. It was awesome. It was great.
When $100,000 was something.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot. And I was like, wow, this is crazy, right? And that's so when I made that transition, and I wasn't making that much at Romsman, to be totally transparent, and I made a lot more, but I was comfortable at Romsman. I liked the people, blah blah blah, but I wanted to make more money.
Fair.
And I thought that's what was going to bring me happiness. And I for about 2 months, I put art because I was painting all the time. I was moved into this new role, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be an artist. I really just wanted money. Like, art isn't going to do that for me. I had a couple different art shows. I was putting on my own art shows at the time. And I realized everyone asks me, oh, you must have hated finance. That's why you left. I didn't. I liked everyone I worked with. I liked them. But art was that much stronger for me. And it really made me happy.
It called you.
It really did.
Yeah.
And then I also started seeing, we're businessmen. Like I started seeing how can I actually make this work? And things started to connect. These murals started to come through. These projects, the paintings started to sell. And although I wasn't making a lot of money, definitely not 100,000 yet, I was trying to see what if I filled my day with art instead of just 3 hours a night? What can I actually create here? And that's what I ultimately ended up doing. So it was a transition point for me. The tipping point, everyone asks always what the tipping point was. It was so many. There was 50 different tipping points, but there was one big one, was a mural in New York. I turned it down. And my boss, I remember at Timber Creek at the time, was like, well, you're not an artist, so it's all good. And I remember listening. I'm like, he wasn't trying to be rude or anything. He was just saying the truth.
Right.
I'm not an artist. It's okay to turn down a mural. And then a month later, that mural came back, and it was a Tuesday night. I remember it like it was yesterday. And they called me the artist that we hired quit. We need you. And I'm like, I'll be there tomorrow. And I literally called my boss that night. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm actually flying to New York tomorrow. I'm an artist. I'm quitting. And he's like,
I
we support you. I'm like, I am exactly. And they were super supportive.
Right.
And I thought it was gonna be the total opposite. Like Timber Creek has ended up hiring me for murals in their condos, and I've done a bunch of work with them since. So it's a really fun turn of events. But they were super supportive because I was actually all in. And
I mean, you have to believe it first. If you're waiting for somebody else to tell you, hey, I think you're an artist. That's what happened. You might wait your entire life and have regrets, right?
Yeah.
The fact that at a young age you're saying, no, despite what others may think, I am an artist. Yeah. Or I believe I am an artist, and I'm going to take this risk. That is the essence of entrepreneurship, right? Is to zig when others zag. So big kudos to you for being able to make that call.
No, it's such a great point, because I don't think until that point I really believed it fully. And that's why my bosses, my parents, when I would tell my parents, or it didn't matter what it was, of course everyone was supportive of a dream, right? But ultimately, if I don't really believe it, they can't support it. And it's, they're supporting something that's just I don't even believe in.
Right.
So many times I have entrepreneurs nowadays, I want to start this company, but I'm not sure. I'm like, well, then don't. If you're not sure, then no one's going to be sure for you. No one's going to serve it to you. So it's a great point.
You and I think are in the same position where we get a lot of reach out from the community asking us, how they can take their current life situation and level up or achieve success. And that's part of the beauty of entrepreneurship, is that mentorship that you can do. But it starts with an internal belief.
Yes.
Right? You have to love yourself and the thing that you're doing more, and just jump in with both feet. If you don't jump in, there's no amount of support that's going to help you, right? You have to do it yourself. So
it's a great point.
It's a critical point.
So last night I went to this amazing event, and I was called on to be a mentor for 30 different entrepreneurs. And we sat at this called revolving tables, and 10 different entrepreneurs came in at a time. And they just talked to me and asked me questions about making the transition. There was pretty much all corporate people that were there, all between 25 to 35 years old, and they were just asking me questions. And it was a really, really great insight, because all of it was, I want to be a baker. I want to be a poet. I want to be a guitarist. I want to do these things. And none of them were actually doing. They just kept saying they wanted. Right. And it was the key, the common thread through all of it. Or even just try to be more creative in your finance career.
Sure.
Try to be more outside the box. And the number one thing on all of them, and I touched upon it at the beginning, but it was that we're wasting too much time talking about it, and we're wasting too much time hypothesizing and creating our own little theses that never actually come through, instead of just doing.
What are you doing to take the next
small step?
Yeah.
Just a little step. That's all you got to take.
But, coming back to your earlier point, it's you have to see the finish line. Yep. or else those little steps are like you will get lost in the forest, right?
Yep.
You won't see the forest through the trees. So like that's so critical, right? Like
100%.
understanding that endpoint and then realizing that it's inches
Yes.
that get you there, not.
And the cumulative of all the inches create something beautiful.
Exactly.
And I think the beauty of the access of information we have in today's society is to say, like, I can look at artists that have paved the way to the thing that I want to do. I can research them. There's books written on them. There's so much different. And you can do that in every single industry. You want to be a baker, you want to be a real estate investor, you want to, whatever it is, there are books, podcasts like this. There are videos, there are master classes that you can take. You can hire coaches to say, how do I get there? And their roadmap is paved. It's there. You just have to be willing to take those small steps and understand that it doesn't happen overnight. We all know that story. Like
No.
there's no such thing as an overnight success. It's so many years of cumulative building blocks that create this beautiful path.
Okay, so you're now out of finance. You've dropped your $100,000+ a year salary. What was that first year like?
Yeah.
You know, like like just curious number stuff. Like how much did you make? And was there sacrifices?
Yeah, no, huge ones. I quit the day I quit my job was the Tuesday before, a Saturday I was getting married. Like it was the week of my wedding. The next night when I went to New York, the next night I closed on my first house. Like it was a crazy time in my life that I should never have been doing something as crazy as quitting my job. So there's definitely a ton of sacrifices. But the one thing I did was I didn't want to give myself a plan B. Like I didn't take a side job. I didn't take a part-time job. And I knew that I had a very, very small amount of money saved in relation to like what I really, looking back, what I've done it, like it was definitely not enough.
Right.
But I just believed in myself. And in understanding that I had so much time, I really, really, really understood the concept of time immediately. So my goal was to fill up all of those 9, 10, 12 hours that I was in that cubicle with not only art. And when I say art, it's not only painting, it's reach out. It's creating packages to send to developers and things. And I hit the ground running immediately. My first step, so the first thing I did was I understood that I worked in malls growing up. I worked in Yorkdale Mall. I was at Foot Locker and Champs and like a couple different other little Gene Machine, like different little very entry, very, you want to talk about entry level jobs. I was like, I wasn't even like I was like a sock boy. And like, I wasn't even on the floor. And so I grew up in Yorkdale and I knew malls had vacancies for like short periods of time. And I knew there was a lot of malls across Ontario. So I started like almost immediately, everyone always asks like, oh, how did you get into Yorkdale so quickly? I'm like, because day 2 of me being an artist, I started reaching out to because I didn't have a gallery that represented me. I didn't even know I was supposed to do that because I didn't go to art school. Like no one taught me how to get into galleries. And even when I would email the galleries, they'd be like, wait, who are you? Like you've never done a show. You've never done anything like of any scale.
Right.
So I started reaching out. I took the entrepreneurial approach. I'm like, well, I'm going to get my own gallery. Like, I don't need you guys. And I ended up...
Can you explain that concept? Because I actually don't understand that. So what is behind the economics of being a successful artistic entrepreneur? That's what we're going to call you. You're an artistic entrepreneur.
I appreciate it because that's how I look at myself.
So walk me through the economics, because like in my dumb mind, like you paint a painting and you sell it for money and then you rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
is that the case?
No, it is a level of part of it for sure. But where I think like where the word successful entrepreneur, artistic entrepreneur will come into play is that there's so many different levels to actually making canvases and actually making art as a full-time thing. So for me, it was first historically. Artists have gone into galleries, been represented by a third-party agency or gallery or management, and they do the artist just sits in their studio, paints, and then it finds a house somewhere.
So it's like an athlete with an agent.
Yeah, very, very similar. But it's, you know what it would be like? It would be like a closer one would be a musician having a manager that books them all their shows. All they do is they sit in their studio and practice the music.
Got it.
They're not actually on the road doing like booking shows for themselves, owning their own music, doing their own distribution, and all that type of stuff.
You're like the professional act that comes into somebody's already established house
infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So So I took the approach of, because I did initially start reaching out to these agencies and stuff, and no one really responded, because I was like, "Who's this kid? Right? You're in finance. You're not even an artist." Yeah. So
now it's working against you.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you're in finance, bro.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many different, like 3 different industries that I've been in. Like sports, finance, and art are totally separate. Like it's just like they don't even
outcast in all, right?
Exactly.
Except artists.
Yeah. Well, at the end of my art, at the end of my baseball, I was accepted. At the end of my finance, I was accepted. It just takes time.
That's true.
So so then what I did was I started reaching out to these malls, and I said, "You have vacancies for weeks at a time, or whatever it is. Let me do pop-ups." And I the same approach. The storyline's the same. How I got to college, how I got to the pitching schools and work, is tons of emails, being resilient, like just keep going, is how I got into the galleries. So I ended up reaching out to all these different spaces, and I said, "I just want a 1-day pop-up." And Yorkdale ended up agreeing to a 2-day pop-up, which was absolutely fantastic. I couldn't afford to, this was going now into finances, like I couldn't afford $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 rent a month to get for these retail spaces. So I said, but like, I have enough money for 2 days, right? Like can I do a pop-up? I will make it beautiful. I'll get PR. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, let's just be realistic.
Take it till you make it.
Like, it was just like, I knew that I could put on a nice show. I'd already done a few art shows, but transparently, like, it was my family and friends at those art shows.
Right.
But what I had was great video, great photo, and great, in my opinion, great art that was on the walls, right? So I had art on the walls that people appreciated. I started selling a little bit, but even at the time, my art was only $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, like for a canvas. And obviously, even if I had 20 of them, that's not sustainable for a year, right? Even if I sold out. What ended up happening with Yorkdale was I upped my price a little bit, just because of just the nature of like the transition of everything happening. I had a 2-day pop-up. There was like 25 pieces. Every single piece sold out.
Wow.
In the first 2 days. So Yorkdale was like, "Hey, why don't you extend to 7 days?" And I already had inventory building because I knew of the potential of this happening. I didn't think it was going to sell out, but I knew that like there was a chance of this being successful. So they extended for 7 days. Everything that I brought in sold out. And then we took like a 1-week break for me to like catch up and like bring new inventory in. And that 2-day pop-up ended up being a 4.5 year, right into the middle of COVID. We ended up it ended up extending that long because they did that well.
That's crazy.
So almost immediately, this was almost 5 months after I quit, I got the gallery. That's how quick it was. And the reason was we'll call it portfolio of all the art shows I did and all of the work, what I was doing at the time. This is a big note to like artists or anything, that I didn't have enough money, even though making $100,000, I made that for a short period of time. We know that's not that much money when it all comes down to it. Like in terms of you get taxed, you got rent, you got this, that, you got a mortgage now, you got all this stuff. What is it? It's not much. And I don't mean that meanly. I mean it's just reality. Like I don't have extra money to buy
on that, but
I didn't have extra money to buy a bunch of canvases and supplies. Is what I mean. So what I would do is I would finish a canvas, I would take a picture of it, and I would present it in a home, like not a sales home, like just put it up in a house, take the pictures of it all, paint it white, and just restart. And I'd made hundreds of canvases that way. Wow. Like literally, I didn't have enough. I didn't, because I wasn't selling at the time. This is years ago. So I didn't have, it wasn't like I can sell and just buy another canvas. I was just making it for content. Before content creation was an actual thing, I was making content. What I did was I built out this whole entire portfolio of like all these paintings that I did. It was like a cumulative 3 canvases with 100 paintings. So not only was it great practice, but I built out content. And then because of the shows I did, which were mainly filled with my family and friends that weren't really buying, which is fine. I did have a lot of support from family and friends, buying early artwork. That's not my career. It's not based off my aunts, right? It was based on, they helped me, of course, but with all the photo, video, and content I had, I was able to present Yorkdale and Sherway and all these different malls in the Toronto area to be like, hey, I can do something pretty here. I'm going to get a crowd. We're going to get some PR, some buzz. And that's exactly what happened. The concept that I had proved true. So on the back of that, with the success of Yorkdale, came different shows around the world. And that's when like it happened very fast because of those 5 years of just nights and weekends. Because I was building up this not that the portfolio was strong, it was just big. Right. It looked like I was doing this for years. Like anyone that didn't know I was sitting in a cubicle thought I was an artist because of how much content on the back end I had. So that's how, almost immediately, so to go back to the sacrifices, things like, there was a ton. Like, I mean, I wasn't traveling like I did now. I didn't buy nice things. We lived in our townhome that we bought pre-construction years and years ago for, $280,000, and it was great. Yeah. And we lived there, and we just kept reinvesting in the artwork, buying more canvases, working into sculptures. And then a lot of the murals, a lot of people don't know, like a lot of my early murals, I wasn't getting paid a lot. I was barely getting paid enough to fly to the location to do it,
Right.
to buy all the supplies. It was almost a break even on my first 5 or 6 big scale murals, and they looked massive. And like I would charge.
It's your buy-in. That's
Exactly.
like your buy-in into the industry.
Exactly. Now, like a big mural is 50 to 80,000 for me to paint,
That
where
is-
before it was
Yeah.
before it was 3
Right.
for the same thing, and it cost me 6 to do.
But you've gained 5 years worth of experience.
Exactly.
Okay, so there is. I want to talk about the softer side of entrepreneurship, which is the support system.
Yeah.
Right. You and your wife have an incredible story, so I would love to hear, or for you to share that with the audience. How old were you when you two met?
We were. What are you in grade 9? Like 13, 14 years
Yeah.
old. But we've been together for 16 years now. And
Which
we just celebrated our 6th year wedding anniversary March 4th, just a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
But we've experienced everything together. We were together through college and together through all of the ups and downs and the growth of everything that we've been able to do. And she went to school to be a teacher. She went to U of T to be a teacher, and
Right.
she worked as a teacher for a number of years until I made the transition. Shortly after I quit, and we got the gallery, so like 4 months after I quit, I said I need some help in the gallery, and this goes back to the sacrifices. I didn't have enough money to pay for a bunch of gallery staff. Like I was selling a painting to make another painting at the time, and it was like we couldn't afford to have full-time staff and all this different stuff at the
Right.
time, studio assistants. So I was like, hey, like I'll work during the days, and you, like, as soon as you leave school at 3:45, run to the mall and like we'll work together. That was actually a blessing, because not only did we get to start to work together and realize that, I mean, there's a lot of couples that can't work together, and like whatever it may be, we love working together. So that was that was a really, really key thing for us. But then B, we got to spend a lot of time together, and then we were able to save money because by not hiring someone. And then eventually as we started to sell more and started to do things, it didn't make sense anymore for me to stay in the studio all the time, and it was overshadowing her career with regards to finances. And I was like, well, we can afford to have you not work as much or at all. And eventually the transition was slow, but eventually she just came to work on full time with me. And so mainly she ran the galleries and just helped with my day to day. And it wasn't like, I always joke around like she did the hard work, like she was doing stuff, but like really we just did everything together. Like I was just I think we can touch upon it, but I'm colorblind. So being a colorblind,
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah, so she's a huge help for that, right? Like especially early on, like so being colorblind, I don't see shades. Like green and brown look the same, blue and purple look the same, red and pink look the same.
What color is this hose?
I'm gonna go blue.
It's blue.
Yeah,
You're not colorblind.
Yeah, I did this. We did this last time I was here. I'm good at relation now, like meaning like. It's a hookah, like it's probably blue. It's probably not where it's a couple of dudes smoking it. It's probably not purple. Yeah. I go like very male, female on a lot of stuff. Like if a guy's wearing a shirt that looks pink, I'm like, no, it's not pink, it's red. Historically, right? Like I wear a lot of pink and different color stuff too, but like I just
salmon's in these days.
Exactly, yeah. But like I just go with historic norms. So, but she's really crucial to me in being in the studio, because I'll be painting something and I'm like, did this change color? Because I don't really see it change color. She's like, oh yeah, I made like shitty brown because it was blue over here and yellow over here and it accidentally blended. And that happens to me a lot. In the past it happened to me all the time. Now I learned my process and I work in layers. That's why all my paintings are very thick. So she's helped me a lot with that stuff.
Do you think you could have done it without her?
Oh no, for sure not. No. There's two things, there's the one side of it's like we're doing this together and we're being able to build and having a support system. But like, everything in entrepreneurship, I'm sure you can attest to this, there's astronomically difficult times. And even if we put the face on that it's not, and even if everything publicly is looking great,
right? We
know there's so many nights and there's so many weeks and there's so many things that are extremely difficult. And having someone by your side saying like, I see you're trying. I see we're trying. We're gonna get through this together. It was so crucial. If I was by myself, I don't even know what I would be doing. Like there were so many times I would have quit.
You've also known each other for literally the entire formative part of your lives.
100%.
You're one and the same. You guys are
exactly. Yeah, and I'm so grateful for it. And I think we both realize how lucky we are for that. And I very rarely use the word luck because I believe that we both have to work to be the people that we are to connect the way that we have connected. So I believe luck is a very airy-fairy word that I don't really believe in, but I know that we're lucky to have found each other because...
Agree with you that luck is a bit of a cop-out word, right? Because you can be lucky or unlucky, but people that work really hard and put in the extra effort and do whatever tend to have more opportunities to be lucky.
100%. And that goes with relationships as well. And I look at that a lot. I have some like friends and family that like, they go to dinner with their wives on Valentine's and their anniversary. And then they're like, I don't know why my wife doesn't let me go golfing or whatever. I'm like, well, you don't spend any time with her. I'm being mean. Like, I mean that, right? It's what you put your time into. Like, your business only succeed when you put a lot of time into it. Your relationship's only going to succeed when you put a lot of time into it. Like, 100%. I spend all of my time, not only because I work with her, but like on even nights and weekends, on things like we spend a ton of time together.
Right.
And that's what brings the luck. It's what brings the opportunity to be lucky. And then I'm being a very aware person. I look around at other situations and things like that. I'm like, I never compare, but I say like, I know that if I keep doing this and keep being a good person in this situation, then things will work out. So having her as support was everything.
I mean, I have a very similar relationship with my wife. I didn't meet her when I was 20. I met her when I was 24, and we've been together for 14 years.
Yeah.
I can't think of a life milestone that I've achieved where she hasn't been by my side and supporting me. Like, it's easy for us to be the face of the entrepreneurial whatever, but no one understands that husband or wife, like the person behind you or that support system behind you is everything.
Everything. Like, I couldn't agree more.
And
milestones is a great point because who are you celebrating those wins with if it's not your significant other? Like, who?
Right. Because that comes back to the point you were making earlier. Like, money won't satisfy you.
No.
You will get it. If you work hard enough and you're solely focused on money, you will be blessed and cursed with having money and then realizing like that gut-wrenching feeling that it doesn't provide really any satisfaction. It gives you peace of mind in that
sometimes
you're not. Yeah, there's a saying like you go from worrying about not having money to worrying about keeping money.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
like it's not like
it's
not like the concern for money ever changes.
Yep.
Okay, you touched on the colorblind thing before. Normally, when somebody gets a diagnosis like you're colorblind, or if you grew up colorblind, the art and the like visual art and making paintings is probably not like the guidance counselor recommended path to success. Give me the pros and cons of that.
For sure.
And how do you, like, to the people that are listening to this, whatever their adversity is, like, what makes that tick for you?
Yeah. And I think it's a great point talking about like the guidance counselor route, because I think that was the second layer to not only as I grew up is like, hey, art is not a viable career, but also you're colorblind.
Yeah.
So like those were two different things that I had to sort of face internally. I guess it was a story that I created in my own mind of like, I can't actually do this. Right. So I think that like but as I continue to, figure out my own path and figure out my own way, I've used it to my advantage at the highest level for two reasons. The first reason is it taught me my style. I had to work in a certain aspect to make the paintings real because I couldn't work fast because the paint would blend.
Right.
I had to work in layers. The layers is what I'm mainly known for, besides like my motifs and my heart and different quotes and stuff. But like the thickness of my canvases, the way that I layer paint is what I'm mainly known for at a global scale. And that's only done because I'm colorblind. So that was a really, really key thing. And then early on...
So you turned a negative into
a positive. And then early on when I got into Yorkdale, going back to the Yorkdale situation with the mall, all of the early PR that I got, the breakfast televisions and like all of these early things was a colorblind artist from there.
Yes.
It's like, and I didn't even truly did it. Everyone's like, oh, you ended up using that to your advantage. I'm like, well, that was the thing that the media wanted to talk about early in my career. And I was like, I'm happy to. Like, let's chat about it. It is a very unique situation. Exactly.
There's not. I know there are colorblind artists.
There's a couple, of course.
Famous colorblind artists, like outside yourself.
Yeah.
But like,
For
it's
sure.
not it's not the norm.
No, it's definitely not the norm. No, so it was something that the media played into, and I was like, I love it. And then it was something that I was able to actually help with my actual creation of artwork. So there was multiple things that it worked for.
All right. So before we send you on your way, I wanted to do something unique with you, if you're down with it, because I really am putting you on the spot here. There's a lot of people that are going to listen to this, and they're going to have questions, and they're going to want to pick our brains. Would you be open to providing a contest style mentorship session or sessions with people that hear this and want to take us up on the offer of I'm here in my career as an entrepreneur or as an artist or an artistic entrepreneur, and maybe providing some feedback to them?
Love it.
Yeah?
Love it. The whole concept of the mentorship and creating masterclasses that people can learn from is something that I absolutely love. So how can we share? Let's do it.
Okay, wicked.
Sure.
So we will do it. We'll run a contest, and we'll say that we're giving up an hour. An hour of your time is fair.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. We'll take them out for lunch or dinner, and we'll really show them something so that. I mean, for me, the give back is everything.
Yeah.
Right. I think about, and even just in your own example, all the people that took bets on us.
Yeah.
The ones that responded to the emails, or that gave us the job opportunities, or that supported us or did whatever. I'd like to be able to give that back, and I'd like to be able to have this podcast or this situation be something that creates the next version of us.
Yeah. I know. I absolutely love it. And having us to bounce ideas off of, and just like how we have, we've had other people around, even
Totally.
if we didn't know that they were helping us at the time, it really was formative for us. So 100%.
Wow.
How we can do it we'll have it at the studio. We'll go out to the thing. We'll go to the office. I love it all.
Okay, well,
Easy.
see, this is how you get people to do
Easy.
stuff. You put them on
Yeah,
camera.
I love it. That was an easy one. That was too easy for me. I like it. I love that
you're
kind
a
of stuff.
good person.
No, I love that
You
stuff.
were going to say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, before we end it off, parting advice to somebody that is going through or thinking about making a switch from what is a very stable life to something that is more entrepreneurial or following a passion, since that is something that I admire so much about you. Share some parting wisdom for us.
Yeah, for sure. I think anyone that's trying to make that transition from the corporate world into the entrepreneurial path is really, first and foremost, analyzing our time and our days. And I really think this is something that's overlooked too often, where we have a lot of time to try new things. And it really comes down to trial and error. A lot of people always talk to me, they go, oh, it's nice for you that you're an artist, you like art. I don't know what I like. I'm like, because you're not trying things.
Right.
We need to be very inquisitive. We need to be very open-minded to trying things. That's the first thing. That's the first step to doing things. So find that hour, find those 30 minutes, find those 2 hours a night to try something new, read a new book, listen to a new podcast, and just open your mind to opportunity. And then the second thing is, once you find something that you may like, truly go all in. And that means, and again, that may only be an hour. You may have family, you may have kids, you may have, you're structured, find your job. But find that hour for yourself. It may have to be early in the morning. It may have to be waking up at 4:35 in the morning, and maybe at 10 p.m. at night when everyone's asleep. But find that hour to yourself and really, really dive into that, because you never know if you truly will love something unless you truly try. I think that's super important.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Basem Hanna Podcast with my good friend and guest today, Anthony Ricciardi. As part of our podcast today, what we'd like to do is launch a little competition for 1 hour of joint mentorship between myself and Anthony to whoever the contest winner is. This is open to anybody that wants to apply or to enter. And the idea would be that you bring us your ideas or your entrepreneurial desires, and we will try to walk you through the steps of taking it from where you are right now to maybe the next level of success, or at least helping you see the finish line or something like that. There's no cost to entry, but what we would like to see is a brief video clip of you telling us what your idea is and why you want to sit down with some mentors to flesh out the idea even more. Good luck. Thanks.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. I'm so grateful to be here. As Basem mentioned, we're going to be doing a contest for entrepreneurs and people that want to become entrepreneurs for an hour of our time in mentorship. And what our goal is that you'll bring us your ideas, your concepts, and we're going to run you through the entire process of how to get from step A right to the end. And we're going to teach you how to goal set and all the fun stuff that's part of the journey of being an entrepreneur. So look forward to seeing you guys there, and we'll see you there.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Basem Hanna Podcast, and my sincere gratitude to Anthony for being here with us today. To check out more full-length episodes of the podcast, you can see them at basemhanna.com. That's BASEMHANNA.com. The episodes are also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple iTunes on their podcast section. If you have any questions, please don't ever hesitate to reach out, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. Thanks.